All right. Good afternoon, Dr. Hamilton.
Hello, Keith.
All right. Do you mind by starting off with your name, your title, and where you work?
So my name is Michael Hamilton. I'm an assistant professor at North Carolina A&T University in Greensboro, North Carolina.
And what is your educational background?
So my educational background, first I went to Jones Junior College. Well, I guess it's Jones College now. I see they changed the name. I went there for pre-engineering from like 2000 to 2002. After that, I went to Mississippi State in industrial and systems engineering. I got my bachelor's, master's, and PhD from Mississippi State during that time. I think after 2007, I went to work, and then I worked on getting the PhD kind of from a distance perspective. When I was working with the Naval Surface Warfare Center, I ended up getting like a graduate certificate in modeling, simulation, and visualization engineering. So I would say those are like the core degrees I have. I have other things like that help me, be better at aspects of my jobs. But those are my core, I'd say core educational degrees.
Okay, gotcha. Has education played a big part in your career?
Yes, I mean, it played a huge part in my career. I mean, to be honest, I wouldn't even be doing what I'm doing today without it, right?
Right.
But one of the things I've always liked about education, I'm a person who always liked to learn. I've always been a knowledge person, always trying to learn something new. But one of the things that's done, as you take education, you increase your network. I've met people. The opportunities I've gotten, it's been through the relationships I've made through getting my education, how I got my first job to how I got this job here that I do today as an assistant professor is because of relationships and showing that you're able to do this from an expertise perspective. So definitely, without it, I don't think I definitely wouldn't be probably in Greensboro as a professor. I'm pretty sure I wouldn't.
Okay. What opportunities has education opened for you?
Well, I mean, one of the biggest one that got me my first job, right? So opportunities that it get me is, I would say, is engineering. I can specifically talk about the engineering field. I would think even to this day, man, it's still one of the most lucrative from a financial perspective that you can make money in. Without the opportunity at Mississippi State University, I wouldn't have met, Paul Babin, who was a director at Mimeo, the first company I got to actually give me an opportunity to work. But one thing that education does, it teaches you a lot of things, and not just what you learn in the books, but getting up to go to class at 8 o'clock, that structure of the construct of being able to go to work, be in a job perspective, taking that knowledge and applying that knowledge that you learned from the academic setting to help a company or organization do something. And by applying that knowledge, it shows others that you can do this. So doing that job, showing others that I can do it, allow me to have other opportunities in other locations, or even have opportunities to go back to school just to prove that, that I have the knowledge and I can actually expand on it to do other things. So it's open, yeah. Like I said, again, the whole Navy situation, without having a good, strong knowledge in, the human sciences and human engineering, I wouldn't have had an opportunity to work for the Navy, which I enjoyed. And be able to help, build systems that, or build and evaluate systems that's best for our warfighters to, protect the country. That was a very unique opportunity that wouldn't have been given to me if it wasn't for the educations specifically that I've taken up.
How long have you been in your current position?
So I've been in academics since I think it was 2016. I look at my career kind of in three phases. You have like my academic career, you have my government career, and then you have my industry career. So I've been in academics probably 6 years. I worked as an assistant professor, a research professor, and associate director for Mississippi State University for 4 years. I've been at A&T for 2 years. I was at the Navy Surface Warfare for about 6 years. That's the kind of the government side. And I was in the industry for about 4 years prior to the government services.
Okay. Did you ever expect to be a professor?
I would have to say no. I remember when I was in school, I was telling someone this other day, the reason why I even went to college is that I didn't want to do what my dad did. You know, my dad, I mean, from the age 8 to about 17 years old, he had me out there logging and cutting trees and fighting mosquitoes and all the other things that happen outside. And I remember telling my dad, I said, you know what? I promise you, one day I'm gonna leave this, I ain't never coming back. And I think that was the goal. He honestly didn't want me to do that for a living. He wanted me to go to college. And so I told myself, I got to go and find somewhere, you know, that I can just make money. So my 4 years of college was figure out how to do my work so I can get a good job. Now, when I went into the job field, I realized right when I went to the job, I started doing my day-to-day job and I started getting a little bored and I wanted to just keep educating myself. So the company allowed me to take classes. So I took the classes, got my master's while I was working there. And I finished that. I still wanted more education. So what I started learning is that I'm a person who constantly likes to learn and constantly like to, you know, get knowledgeable and like to give that knowledge back to others. So throughout my, once I got my PhD, I didn't go into academics then, but I started kind of building up my background, making sure, you know, I became worthy. Because once you get a PhD, it doesn't mean you know everything. You still have to, it's kind of like the beginning. You still got to like build and sharpen your sword to become decent in your field. But over time, even at the government level, I knew I wanted to go into academics at that point because I had gotten used to where I go in, we learn, we start training the junior employees, and I liked it watching, you know, others learn and build up their capabilities and then go off to do other things. And so I realized real quick that from a career perspective, not a job, I could have stayed in the industry and made a lot of money, I think, like a whole lot more money than I'm gonna make in the academics. But what my joy don't comes from my paycheck. It really does. Part of my joy comes from watching others, you know, grow, watching others have, you know, a career or be able to have an opportunity that was provided, if possible, by me that they wouldn't have had if they didn't have a relationship with me, or let them know, hey, you know, he's a good role model. He's somebody, you know, I would like to model my life by because he tries to do, you know, good and do right by people. So, you know, character is a big deal to me. So once I started realizing I liked that aspect of the field, that's when I knew that I really wanted to be a professor. So what happened was when I got a research professorship at Mississippi State, I didn't realize the difference between the jobs. Like there's a difference between an assistant professor and a research professor. So an assistant professor, part of the role is the teaching and the research. But on the research side, it's mostly just research. You don't really have a lot of interactions with students naturally. You have to like make that happen. I wanted to be on both. I wanted to be able to actually teach, and I teach not only to try to explain to students, but that's how I keep my sword sharp. You know, when I teach something, I always tell people, you want to master something, teach it. It's a true statement. It's harder to not understand. In the things I teach, it's hard for me not to understand it because I teach it all the time. I hear all the different questions. I've seen all the different problems you can have with the topics. So therefore, you become really good at the topic. And so you can apply it really well as a professor. So that's when I started realizing that connection. I started kind of figuring out what I wanted a career in, not just a job. I think I had jobs from 2005 to 2016. They paid the bills. I can do them, and I would keep going. But when I got into the role of a professor, I realized this is something I can do, you know, for the rest of my life, something I'm interested in doing for the rest of my life, something that I value more than the money it provides. I value the other things, other aspects of it that I can do for the rest of my life. And then when you start getting into something like that, that's when you know this is what you want to do. So I can see myself being a professor in some form or even in an academic environment the rest of my career. To be honest with you, I might do things on the side, you know, consulting things, but when it comes down to my day-to-day job, I think I would like to do something like this along that lines.
Great. What is your personal definition of a great professor?
Personal definition. Well, I think a great professor will always remember what our job is. You know, it ain't about us, it's about them. A great professor will be a professor that's willing to give their all to ensure that the people they're professing to, that their ownership is to them, like that they're learning, that we are to provide a service to you to ensure that you gain the knowledge we have that you can use as a foundation to go and do what you want to do in life. So my best professors are the ones who invested the time in me, who are willing to, when they call about advising, they answer, right? When I had questions about the research and stuff, and I was struggling, they would come to the lab and help me out. And I try to do those things when students reach out. When if I can, I never put off students. I never not answer emails. I try to figure out how to explain the same thing 30 times. I'm one of those types, trying to figure out another way to make sure that they understand the topic. To me, great professors do a good job at that, being able to reach the students as well as be able to do, the other work that we do, the research side, be a good researcher as well as a good service member of the community. So professors who do that, I think they're the best professors.
Sure. What are your job duties as a professor?
So as a professor, I always try to explain this difference, at least for me, the two universities I've worked at. The biggest difference is, I would say, the difference between a professor and a teacher. I like to say like a high school teacher, is that like teaching is the aspect of the job, right? Mm-hmm. As a professor, you're really a consultant. Like you're a consultant to the university, and you have three roles. You have responsibilities of educating based on your field expertise. You have responsibility of conducting research in that area of the department that you actually bring income into the university to do research from other organizations. And that's a big role. And then the last one is service. Like I'm on the faculty senate, or if there are things on the department and we want to like go out and help for the university that benefit the university as a service member, we go do those things. So I have three roles. I have to be a teacher. I have to be a researcher, kind of a salesperson as well. I consider it both, because you got to sell the skills that you can provide and then actually perform that work, whether it's to the National Science Foundation or different types of companies. And then you also have services that you should provide, assist and things that actually serve the community of the area. And that's the three roles. But it really is more of a consultant role. People don't I think that's the thing people don't realize. I don't have hours. I can go to work as long as I teach and I do my work. That how I do my day is 100% up to me. I don't answer. I don't have to hit a clock. There's no time cards. There's no, there's nothing like that. And no one is looking for me. So a professor grants you autonomy that a regular job doesn't. And that's one of my things I value. I value autonomy to do things. I want to do it when I want to do it. And that's one of the things being a professor allow you to do.
Okay. What classes do you teach?
So currently I'm teaching project management. Focuses on teaching students how to be good project managers, that process. I teach data science courses. So I teach a course doing data analysis and modeling and using R, and data analysis and modeling using Python. I've taught statistics, statistics 1 or intro to engineering type courses. But those are kind of like the main courses I teach. I do teach specialty courses, and these courses are specific to my research area. So like one of my research areas in digital twinning. So it means the concept of you have a real object and you want to have not only a digital version of it, but a kind of information connection to it so that you can work on the digital version and it can actually be like working on the real one. So changes in the digital space can affect and improve changes in the real space. I taught a class on how to develop digital modelings in advanced manufacturing. So like that's a course that it's my specialty course. So that's the cool part. We have like courses I teach that the college require that's for the discipline, they'd be an industrial engineer. Then you have kind of courses you teach for the grad students. Like students can take your special course and count it as a graduate course, and they can use that when they're trying to find their specialization. Because as you go up, as you get, master's and PhD, you start kind of specializing, and you're gonna have to kind of pick one at some point. Initially, when you get your PhD, you kind of pick one of these. And then once you get your PhD, you can kind of move around the spectrum of the field. But that's pretty much, those are kind of, them the courses I'm teaching this semester, at least. I can say that for now.
Gotcha. So you just mentioned two areas that you do research in. So what all research are you involved in right now?
Okay, so I have one project. So digital twinning, I would call it research area. Digital twinning for advanced manufacturing. I also do research. I've researched with certain devices. So like I'm sure you know about the Quest, right? The Oculus Quest or the HoloLens. I do research with virtual and augmented reality tools. Like I have one project we're doing now, looking at, we're building this immersive environment to evaluate the lateral agility and reaction time of athletes. So they go into this thing and we measuring their muscular activity loads and the kinematics of how their body moves to see if there are issues, when you concuss, what is the connection between the musculoskeletal system and their cognition, and trying to tease out information like that. So that's one of the projects we're working on right now. I have a project where we're doing digital twinning of additive manufacturing, specifically plastic style manufacturing. I would say those are the two main ones that I'm working on at this point. But as a general aspect, my research either falls in human factors or human performance. That's a better word. Human performance of the body within some environment, whether it's a work environment or a sport environment. Then it's something with modeling and simulation in the digital twin space, where we create digital twins to do things. And then the other aspect is in like pure data science. Like people ask me to look at these large data sets and conduct different data science algorithms and stuff and give them insight about the information, or provide them some knowledge about it that's just not obviously there when you got so much data and you don't have a good way to see it. So data science, VR, AR, digital twinning, and then human performance. That's kind of like the circle that I live in when it comes down to research.
Gotcha. So you mentioned that you are a professor at North Carolina A&T. Do you mind giving us a brief description of the university?
Yes. So North Carolina A&T, North Carolina Agricultural and Technical State University, is a proud university. It's considered the largest HBCU in the country. Based on USA Today, it's the #1 HBCU in the country. I think just recently, the band was considered the top HBCU band of the nation this year. But historically, there are some other things about A&T that's very interesting. Our building is called McNair Hall, and it's named after Ronald McNair. He was an astronaut. He would have been the second African American that went to space. He was on the Challenger in 1986 that exploded. He was on it. And they commemorated him, and he's on our engineering building where the current engineer, there's a new one, but the current engineering building is named after him. Also the Greensboro 4, or known as the A&T 4, but they're the ones in 1960 that during the civil rights movement, they went into a restaurant, I think it was called Woolsworth, and they sat at the bar and wouldn't move. And it's one of the things that ignited the surrogation, movement, to get us not only to be able to stop, to end surrogation in restaurants, but also in schools and buses and all other things. And it led to other movements like that. So they have a monument for them, for those 4 on campus. I think it was built in 2002. Next week, if I'm not mistaken, February 1st, I think they have a celebration for them. So that's a couple things that the A&T is known for.
All right. What is the proudest moment in your career?
Proudest moment in my career. I had to think about this one. I think for me, because I always laugh. My career is weird because I keep breaking it up. It's like I do something for a few years, and then I do something else for a few years, and I do something else for a few years. But I'm always proud when I'm actually honored by others. I remember one time I got an award. I think it's an award at Dahlgren, and I wasn't expecting. It was like the scientific, it was an award. Dr. Charles, what's his last name? I can't think of the last name, but it's an award for the W department's like scientist award, and I didn't see it coming. But because when you're working, you just working. You're just doing your job, and you let others, I believe you let others honor you, not yourself. So I was surprised. That was a proud moment to me that, they thought that I deserved that award that year. Because I never would have thought I would be, doing stuff like that. But that's proud. That was very, sorry for my alarm, but that was very, I was very proud of that opportunity when that happened.
Okay. What has been the hardest moment in your career?
Hardest moment, man. I actually, I asked my wife this. She said that she think it was. I don't think I've told you this. When I first, and they would disagree, but when I decided to get my PhD, I quit everything. I had a good job. I was making good money and everything, and I knew I didn't want to do that for the rest of my days. I told my wife, "Hey, we're gonna quit. I'm gonna quit. you're gonna quit and we're going back to school. I had done all the coursework, but I hadn't done the dissertation. But I couldn't do it while working. I couldn't figure out how to do this. So we quit, good jobs, went back to college level finances. My son was 2. I never forget that he was just 2 years. Oh no, he was a 2. He was 6 months old when I quit. So just had a child, go there, and then on the second year, I only gave myself 2 years because I was almost broke. I mean, I couldn't make it. I knew I only had enough savings for 2 years. I had closed out all my funds, like IRAs and everything, just to survive on campus because I still had the house in Olive Branch at the time. I went up there for my first defense for my dissertation. I didn't pass. I was heartbroken. I ain't gonna lie. If you ask the professors on my committee, they would say I didn't fail. But in me, I felt like it was a failure because I had put so much effort and time in trying to graduate on a certain time scale. So when I was depressed, man, I probably gained 15 pounds. I'll never forget that. I know I gained 15 pounds, but I still was still working on it. I had already accepted a job, assuming I was going to have a PhD. So when I went to work at Dahlgren, they allowed me to finish up what I was doing. I ended up passing in July 2011. But the failure was that I felt like I wasted all this time. I was like, I done caused myself all this hardship for nothing. Like I said, if you talk to my committee, I don't think they would say it was a failure, but I didn't pass the first time around. It was the second time around. I had to go back and rechange some stuff to my research. I mean, it took me about another 3 or 4 months to get it to the point where I can pass. So when I actually finally passed, I wasn't even that happy. I was just, I was just relieved that I don't have this burden to carry. Because when you not pass, when you think you're gonna pass, everybody in the department know you were going up to defend. So it's just that whole man, he didn't pass. That sucks. I hated that, man. I'm not gonna lie. Still to this day, I think about it. It's like, man, that was a tough 4 or 5 months for me between the first defense and then the final defense. But yeah, I would say that was the toughest part of my career because I had stopped my career. I had ended everything in my career to do that. So to be able to pass that and then see that was a good decision because the rest of my career I've enjoyed, and I wouldn't have been able to do what I do today to this day without a PhD. I wouldn't have been able to get in the roles without it because they were both kind of research scientist roles. You can't be a professor without it. So to this day, that's probably, I'm thankful to have it, but that was a hard time for me at the time.
Gotcha. Do you have any specific goals as a professor?
As a professor, I would say, yeah, I got a short-term goal to get tenure. I don't want to lose my job. That's my short-term goal. But no, long-term goal, I mean, I just want to be the best. It's interesting. It's hard to answer that. But, I do have goals. I want to be a good professor. I want to get tenured. I want to get money for the university and perform good research. I might, I hope to stay here long enough that I can do leadership roles. I mean, kind of in a professorship, it's kind of like you got to hit check box to be able to do certain things. Like, can't really be a department head if you ain't tenured. Can't really be a dean if you ain't never been a department head. It's kind of like one of those kind of things. So I do have aspirations to be in leadership in the academic stratosphere, but those will be kind of long-term goals. What type of leadership, where I want to go. Do I want to stay on the research track or the academic track? I haven't decided that, but I do know I want to get tenure, and that's like a 7-year process. I'm 2 years in, so once that happens, I'll be able to kind of look into the other levels of this career field.
Gotcha. Do you mind explaining what tenure is for people that are watching this interview that don't know?
Oh yeah. So in my opinion, tenure is kind of like the easy answer is once you tenure, you really can't be fired for you can't be let go for financial reasons. It don't mean you can't be let go. I mean, if I go slap the president tenured, I'm sure they'll fire me, right? You can't do something like that. But just to be honest. But what it means is that the community, you go up, you have a package. That package is reviewed by external people from the university and internal people. And the external and internal people pretty much vote to say, for this person, compared to his peers at other universities with his publications, research, service, all this, if he was at our university, we would consider making him, a professor that gets status of tenure, the status, where you don't, you're there, and the only way you would probably be taken away would be because the university can't fund itself. Now that's the other way that you can get untenured. But in tenure track positions, a lot of people don't know, when we take these positions, the expectation is to be tenured. If I don't get tenure, I have to leave the university. And say, so I have 5 years. In 5 years, I go up for tenure in the 6th. If they say they don't want me, say that happens, in the 7th year, I have to find another job. You cannot be in a tenure track position. You cannot be, that's why it's called tenure track. A tenure track position has a timeline. So like after the 6th year, you go up. If you don't get it, you have to leave, either go work somewhere else or find another university or go back to industry. So it's not something you go into this knowing this rule. So that's what it is. So tenure is kind of like, you made it. The department thinks you're of value to their team, and to the point where they're gonna keep you, and they won't let you go unless there is a catastrophic event for the department. But the university is pretty much vesting truly into you fully, and it opens up other doors. Now you can be a department head, because now you there now. You don't have to worry about fear of leaving. You can start being in more administrative roles with the university. And every 4-year university has, Mississippi State, Southern, everybody has this kind of process as a professor.
I didn't know that much went into tenure.
Oh yeah. And then there's another one. Like once you get associate, you got another 6 years to be full professor. So as a professor, assistant professor is the bottom. So I'm an assistant professor. Then you have associate professor. Then you have full professor. Full professor is another process, and they all have financial gains. Like there's money involved in those steps. So yeah, if you're in the professor world, when you're talking to an assistant professor, the associate professor is definitely of higher rank. And then the full professor is of higher rank than the associate. So they tend to have more power, within their positions. And a lot of time it goes with longevity. If you're an associate professor, it doesn't mean you're going to get full professor. You still have to prove that for being a full professor, are you world renowned? Like, everybody know who you are? Are you still bringing in great money? Do you have the publications that if you were somewhere else, you would still have the rank of full professor? So it's not an automatic thing that you're going to get assistant associate before. It's something you actually do have to work for in all aspects.
True. Okay. During your career, what is a talent that you discovered that you did not know that you had?
A talent that I did not know that I had. I was thinking about this earlier. I think, I didn't know that when I went to work, though. I knew I had a talent with people. I've always been good with people. People is, to get people to work on the one accord or want to help or assist, to get the fire out of people. I didn't know I would be able to do that in the workforce. Everywhere I've been, I've always been able to communicate well, identify the mood of a room, be able to talk to different types of people, being able to change it up. If you're talking to, professionals versus, social or very serious situations, I always been able to read the room and try to make a good decision of it. I think that's a talent that I knew I had it just as my personal friends, but I didn't know that would translate very well in my work career. As a research team member or a professor, working with other professors to try to write proposals and get grants and stuff. That's a talent of mine. I think it's intangible, right? Resume type talent, a talent where people want to work with you and they're willing to, willing to put their stuff on the line for you. I have some full professors who only know me a couple of years. They defend me strong, like they've known me for 10 years. And I really enjoy that. And that's something I think, that's something I have.
During your career, what is a skill that you thought was underdeveloped?
I can tell you it was a skill that's underdeveloped and it's still underdeveloped. I work on it every day. My writing skills. I'm a strong math person, but I'm a weak grammar and English type person. My whole career has been centered. You wouldn't really know if you read my publication stuff, but I put a lot of effort. I have to work extremely hard to write well, just sentence structures and stuff. I have I wouldn't call it, I don't know, it's some weird condition. I never got it diagnosed, but I do have a condition where when I write and text go onto the screen, when I reread it, I might actually leave out words. Like I read it, it seems like it's supposed to be there, but if I were to listen to it, I can tell I missed the words. Like my ears pick up on mistakes I do in writing. Then my eyes, and I should have got diagnosed with this when I had this issue in high school, but because I was so strong in math, nobody really cared, right? You know, they said, "Oh, it's so fine." I didn't realize how. I should say this. I didn't realize how important English and writing was until I went to work. I was a really good math science person all through school. Great, you know, everybody like, oh, he's an engineer. You know, that's one of the reasons why I picked it, because it wasn't requiring a lot of writing and stuff. But when you go in industry or in academics, you got to be able to write. People got to be able to read what happened. And it can't sound like a second grader wrote it. You know what I'm saying? It needs to be very thorough and wrote out. And I learned that I actually have some type of issue with, and I still do. But the thing is, I manage it very well. Like with my condition, when I write now, I always listen to what I wrote. So if I write an email, I'm going to listen to the email in my earpods just to make sure what I see on the screen matches what I hear. And that match has saved me many times with just basic grammatical stuff you wouldn't even call it grammatical. It'd be like, he forgot a letter, or he didn't put a word, not a letter, he didn't put an entire word there. When I read it, I see the word, but the word isn't there. But I'm reading it and it's there in my mind. So, but my ears are much more sensitive to it. So I can tell when, so that's something I've known that problem since I was in 2005. I had a boss who pointed it out to me when I was working. He said, Mike, man, you're a really good engineer, you know, but this is going to be an issue with you. When you write, you leave out words. I mean, you really do. And it took me to like, that was starting my thing about, okay, I'm not going to let this defeat me. I was just going to figure out how to accommodate it. And so I started learning different methods of accommodating that type of disability, because it really is a disability. I've, you know, it's funny now, there's so many more things today. You got Grammarly now. Back in them days, you didn't have these tools, which I do use Grammarly, by the way. I know it's not a plug, but they pretty good as well, at least for structured sentences and stuff. But there's a lot more today for that type of problem than it was when I was in school. But yeah, that's still to this day. When I write, I mean, that's going. I think I'm gonna have that till I die. That's gonna be a thing that I'm gonna struggle with. Is my writing to I combination doesn't match. It's never matched. And I think that's why I've always been struggled with grammar and English stuff. But yeah.
Gotcha. If you could give advice to your 18-year-old self, what would you say?
I would tell my 18-year-old self, don't worry about the money. Don't worry about the money. Life is more than money. I made so many decisions, so many dumb decisions in college and in my career because I wanted money right now. That was a friend on my Facebook, and she posted a post about, you know, there's actually 4 wealths, and I put way too much time, and I know this now because it's true. But there's 4 wealths, not one. We tend to tie wealth to finances, right? You know, like the more money, the more wealthy you are, right? But, you know, you have financial wealth, which is one we kind of play in all the time. You have social wealth, right? Then you have health, right? Health is a wealth. And then you have autonomy. And autonomy is like, you know, the freedom to do what you want to do. I've learned that, I didn't know this then, but I've learned that my wealth I'm not driven by money as much as you would think I would be. I'm more driven about my health. I mean, I like the gym, working out stuff, and autonomy than I am anything about my social wealth and my and finances. So that's one of the reasons why I like being a professor, is that you get great autonomy. I can kind of work on things I'm interested in. Yes, I have to teach you stuff, but 90% of the day, I get to do what I want to do. And I can go to the gym when I want to. I can walk, run. I'm gonna exercise when I get off this call. I can do that when I want to. And if I want to go to work tomorrow at 10, I can. Like that's that autonomy, the control of my day. If my kids get sick, I can stay home. Like it's not a big deal. I don't want to be in an 8 to 5 type situation again in life. You know, I want to be able to control that. So the biggest one was that, man, because I had an opportunity to be a grad student right after I got my bachelor's. His name was Dr. Jen. He's I think he's the department head in Tennessee now. He was trying to talk me into it. He said, man, you smart. You should stay here and get your, and I said, how much you make? 20,000. 20,000? I said, I've been in college for 4 years. I ain't gonna make 20,000. And I got a job over here offering like, you know, 50,000. You know what I'm saying? It's like, I'm gonna take the job. Like, you know what I'm saying? My brain is, but that's like looking at it the short term. You know, it's all short term. Like I wasn't looking at it in the long term. So I wish I had took that, didn't have any, what you call it, loans and stuff, and just stayed in college and let them pay for it. You know,
Right.
I would tell my old self, do that. I'm, at that time, you're only like 23, 24. You think time is leaving you. You're still really young. I'm 49. I look back, I'm like, why did I try to move so quick? I should have just taken my time. Would have saved myself a lot of heartache if I had just taken my time and enjoyed it and wasn't so concerned with trying to make a dollar. Because I can tell you right now, for me, financial wealth ain't that high enough to say, give me $1 million. And if I'm gonna have to be gone from my family all the time and work 12 hours a day, I'm not gonna want it, because I know the money is not gonna mean that much to me if I can't have my own system, my own control, my own joys, create my own stuff. So that's what I would tell my younger self. Just don't worry about the money. It'll come. You're gonna have opportunities to make money. Just enjoy the ride. To get the knowledge, get as much of it as you can, and go forth.
Okay. Who has been a mentor or inspiration in your life?
Well, it's funny. I have many over the time. I can start with my parents. They've been a good mentor for me in understanding like how to stay grounded. I think my humbleness, how to be respectful. I know a lot of times when we think mentor, we think about people who got you to like some place in your career, but I think without those skills, I wouldn't have been able to. Nobody wouldn't want me to be that or this or that or be part of their teams and stuff if it wasn't for those core lessons you learn from your family. I've been pretty lucky. I would say every mentor I've had. My first one, his name was Paul Babin. He was my first boss was all about education. If it wasn't for him specifically, I wouldn't have gotten a PhD, because when I came to work, he was working on his PhD. And he was like, you should keep educating yourself. Education is a strong thing. You should always try to better yourself where you are. Without him, pushing, and I always wanted to learn, but I don't think I ever would have thought about PhD if he didn't mention it. I didn't, I looked at that was just too far away. So I would give him a lot of credit on that. But man, I've had some good people to help build my character over the years. Dennis Ray, I know we don't know these people, but it's the different bosses and people I had along the way. They helped mold me into the person I am. And all these people gave me opportunities too. Like, not only they mentor, and I try to do that in my own world. Not only you should be a mentor, but you should be looking out for them. People you're mentoring, you should be not only helping them, but trying to open up an opportunity for them. And that's exactly what they did. They would help me. Then they'll say, hey, Mike, I think you should do this. I think you should apply for this based on what we've been talking about. And so that comes, like I say, that service, that would keep me in the service world. If students come to me asking me questions or advice, I listen to them, but then I'm thinking about them and trying to figure out how to put them where they need to be, so they can better themselves. Because, I can't do everything, but we can find people who can build them up in what they're trying to grow in. So I would say those are a couple of be my good mentors.
Gotcha. What has been your key to success that has gotten you this far?
Key to success, man. I think for me, one of the big ones when I tell my kids this too, don't never undermine knowledge, man. Always gain as much knowledge as possible. Like what it can never be taken away from you. You can go after money, you can go after a lot of things, but I think my what's the word? I have a urge always to learn something. If I learn something, I get it maxed out, I'm gonna go learn something else. I'm always trying to learn what I don't know. And honestly, those little things is how I get opportunities. I'll never forget when I went to Dahlgren, I didn't know nothing about VR and AR and back then it was the Connect. We bought one and I just started reading books about how to program it. And that got me into programming. And that programming got me a project. But that project got me funding, eventually. And then that funding became a research area that led me to, when the MSU was reaching back, I had that extra research. So they said, oh, he should come help us start a VR thing. So I'm just saying, if I never taken the step to just keep learning, I would have never had the opportunity to be able to go into other things. Now, the other key to success, I always try to be honest. Like I do believe in that the person that people see is the like if I'm a friend of yours, I'm truly am a friend of yours. Like I don't treat you differently. I try to stay. My character is so important to me. Like what I say about you in the face, I'm probably gonna say about you behind your back, and I try to stay that way. So it keeps nothing coming back on you. So if you know. If it's true, if I've said it, I probably said it, before, good or bad. I'm gonna say the same thing. I would say that's another key to success. Don't try your best not to burn bridges, because you never know when you got to walk them back. But that's another big one. Try to be high characters. Don't try to get over on people. Just treat people right. But I know it sounds, in the Bible, you reap what you sow, but yeah, somewhat, the karma system works true. What you put out is what you're gonna get back. So I would say the more good energy you put out to people, the better the better things will come back to you. That's the truth.
Okay, it's my last question. For the high schoolers and college students watching this interview, what advice would you give aspiring professors?
Aspiring professors. You know what? The biggest advice I would say, especially if you're trying to be a professor and you're a high schooler and you're undergrad, when you go to college, or the high school part, do your best, get the best grades. But when you go into college, try to get into undergrad research. One of the things you don't get an opportunity to do naturally as an undergrad is get into undergrad research. Definitely take your courses. Be thinking about what that degree program, how it's broken down, like what is the interest of it. Like for instance, I give you an example because it might not make sense. In industrial engineering, there's people who do management science, like that's a thing. Management science, human factors and ergonomics is a thing. Like people who focus on that in that field, like they industrial engineers, they have a specialty. Then you have operational research is a thing. Healthcare research, supply chain management, logistics. These are things that people do. These are job things that people research on and become really good at it. So a lot of times you won't get that as an undergrad unless you're doing research. So if you really know you want to be a professor, go to the professor, let them know that you're thinking about, one day you would like to be a professor and you want to learn more about their undergrad research programs, so they can allow you into their labs. You can see what they're doing. You can start figuring out, oh, do I really want to be a professor? Oh, this is what you're going to do as a professor? You're going to start doing research on this. Then if you start showing that interest, you'll eventually get paid. I mean, I have positions now. If an undergrad were to come up, I might give them a stipend just to assist in my research. But if they come, they're going to learn that interest. Now, this is outside of your coursework. They're going to learn, oh, so this is how you apply this skill to this research problem. So the earlier you do that, you're going to be more ready when you go to grad school, because you're going to be able to walk in and not saying, you're going to be able to say, hey, listen, I want to get my master's and I want my concentration to focus on this, instead of just going to grad school to take classes. Because the difference between grad and undergrad is that you go to undergrad to be professed to. We're giving you knowledge, right? When you go to grad school, a lot of times you got to ask the why questions. Like, not only are we giving you knowledge, but you should be questioning us. Like, why is it like that? We just learned this. How can I apply this new knowledge in a way that hasn't been applied before? Or how can I, in that ideal of the research mind, the research methods, thinking that way requires practice. It'd be really nice to get that practice as an undergrad so you can be tutored into that process of looking up lit reviews, trying to find gaps in research, understanding how to set up an experiment, and writing a journal paper or a conference paper. You want to be a professor, you got to be able to speak. Professor, when you interview a professor, we can talk too much, Key, so you got to shut us up. But professors got to have good public speaking. You got to learn how to not only speak, but explain it more in one way. You got to be able to explain the concepts, be able to explain it visually, be able to try to explain it, differently auditorily. You really have to know the material, because your job is to let others step on your shoulders to climb, right? You giving them your level of knowledge. So when they jump on their shoulders and jump off, they higher up there, and then they can teach, their level and stuff like that. The last thing I'll say about being a professor, always be willing to learn something, because we always say in academics that your degree only has about a four-year half-life before it's already obsolete. That's true to professors too. No, the way I do data science and analytics today is not how I did it in 2002. We're still using VBA and Excel. I haven't picked up Excel forever because the time has changed. The analytics have changed. Data science has changed. My field has changed. How we do time studies and stuff are different. So you got to be able to always, when something new come out, be able to figure out how to integrate that into your field. So if you go into it looking for research, looking for understanding how to answer why questions, you'll be man more than ready to be a professor and be a really good one. You'll be sought after as a student if you have undergrad research by the time you graduate in your senior year. Everybody will be looking to work with you because that means that you've done something the rest of your classmates didn't do. So that'd be a good thing to do.
Okay, that's it for my questions. Do you have anything else for the people watching the interview?
Nah, I think I'm good. I just thank y'all for listening to me. And if you got any questions, you know how to reach out to me. So feel free if there's a question to me personally about the professor positions or academics in general. I would definitely be open to talk to someone if necessary.
All right. I appreciate it, Dr. Hamilton. You have a good day.
All right. You have a good one. Talk to you later.
See you.